Hello, you're watching Inside the Americas, and today we're focusing on the situation in Brazil, second only to the United States as the country most severely affected by Covid-19 internationally. Coming up in this special show, can Jair Bolsonaro's populist politics survive his handling of the coronavirus pandemic? We take a look at the Brazilian president's controversial approach to the health crisis. Living in close quarters and precarious conditions, the residents of the country's favelas face major challenges when it comes to carrying out social distancing. Our reporters find out why this young population is being hit hard by the virus. And we look into how the country's indigenous communities are dealing with Covid-19, with some activists warning that they could be wiped out if left unprotected. Now, he's commonly seen shaking hands and embracing his supporters. Jair Bolsonaro has been widely criticised for his cavalier approach to hygiene measures and has been vocal about his opposition to the lockdown being implemented in various states. Yet with more than 23,000 deaths from the virus, the World Health Organization has warned Brazil against reopening its economy without sufficient testing to control the spread of the pandemic. Bolsonaro's handling of the crisis is now in the spotlight.
Surrounded by bodyguards, Jair Bolsonaro greets a rally, his cheering supporters packed in tightly behind barriers. Shunning a face mask, Bolsonaro poses for selfies, hugging children amid the crowd. The Brazilian president says only the most fragile need protection from the coronavirus.
No meu caso particular, pelo meu histórico de atleta, caso fosse contaminado pelo vírus, não precisaria me preocupar. Nada sentiria ou seria, quando muito, acometido de uma gripezinha ou resfriadinho.
For Bolsonaro, COVID-19 is simply a common flu. He's calling for the country to return to work immediately to relaunch its economy and denouncing regional lockdown measures. An absence of a national health strategy and Bolsonaro's refusal to adhere to WHO recommendations has made life difficult for the president's two previous health ministers. One was fired, the next resigned just a month after taking the post. Bolsonaro is accused of minimizing the epidemic as it ravages Brazil. Even some of his supporters are getting fed up.
Faz com que ele fique isolado politicamente, mesmo entre aquelas pessoas que votaram a favor dele, que são de centro-direita e que jamais apoiariam Lula, neste momento se mostram, num certo sentido, desapontadas com essa radicalização do governo Bolsonaro.
That disappointment could prove critical. Polls show Bolsonaro's popularity in consistent decline since the start of the crisis. Though his populist stance continues to fire up his base, attendance at his rallies is growing increasingly sparse.
In other parts of the world, elderly people are being particularly protected from Covid-19 since they constitute a vulnerable social group. Yet in Brazil, the disease is seriously affecting the under 60s, according to a recent study carried out by the country's epidemiologists. And this is even more prevalent in the poorest neighbourhoods, the favelas. In Rio de Janeiro alone, there are over 800 communities like this, hillside, working-class districts where the virus is spreading at an exponential rate. Our correspondents went to find out more.
In Rio, high up in Mangueira, the hilltop neighbourhood, José Barros, a 46-year-old entrepreneur, is barely recovering from the week he spent in intensive care.
Tomando todas as precauções, com muito medo, muito cuidado, e mesmo assim aconteceu, né? Fomos acometidos por essa doença. Então, sim, na hora que tivemos somente a suspeita, então foi apavorante.
For the past 2 months, the Barros family has actually been following strict quarantine instructions. But the virus is spreading rapidly through the neighbourhood.
Foi privilegiado, sim, por ter plano de saúde, então, mas tem gente que não tem. Eu perdi uma amiga de infância com 43 anos, sentada 3 dias no Hospital Miguel Couto esperando atendimento.
Like José and his family, most residents of the favela live in cramped, precarious conditions without proper ventilation, ideal for the respiratory disease to spread further. At this public hospital, doctors have noticed a sizable increase in the number of serious cases among younger patients, many of whom live in the favela. Residents of these communities rarely have medical checkups. Respiratory illnesses have long been common.
Aqui no Rio de Janeiro, a doença tem atingido primeiro a Zona Sul, onde você tem nível social maior. E aos poucos ela foi se disseminando para as outras áreas, né? E atingindo as pessoas que tinham comorbidades, né? De comunidades. Onde você tem uma aglomeração maior, você tem uma velocidade de contaminação maior.
People who live here are also more exposed to the virus because they are often informal workers and must physically leave their homes in order to provide for their families. In the Providencia favela, a group of artists is denouncing the total lack of government assistance across social media.
Tempo difícil, em plena pandemia no Rio de Janeiro surge uma nova ditadura. Isso prova o quão genocida é o teu presidente.
More than half of all COVID victims in Brazil are black or mixed race. 8 of the 10 worst affected states by the outbreak so far are home to the biggest number of favelas in the country.
In the Amazon, the new coronavirus is spreading particularly quickly among Brazil's indigenous population, and some are turning to remedies using ingredients collected in the forest to alleviate their symptoms. Activists say if serious measures are not taken to protect indigenous territories from the disease, some communities may be wiped out altogether. Peter O'Brien has more.
They're used to fending for themselves. Making their way up the Amazon River are 5 healers from an indigenous community in northwestern Brazil. They found what they came for: medicinal plants to treat the coronavirus. Back in the village, those who've had symptoms claim the traditional remedies work. The community leader says they don't have much of a choice anyway.
Parece que eles escolhem quem atender e deixam a gente sem atenção.
Despite its remoteness, the Amazonas region is one of the worst hit places. So much so that the mayor of the regional capital, Manaus, called the deaths a crime against humanity on the part of the federal government.
Eu temo genocídio e quero denunciar essa coisa ao mundo inteiro. Ao mundo inteiro. Nós temos aqui governo que não liga para a vida dos índios.
Activists and researchers worry that increasing commercial activity in the Amazon is also a risk factor.
É preciso gente para desmatar e tem muita invasão de unidades de conservação e terras indígenas, e essas pessoas podem levar a Covid-19 para esses territórios, colocando em risco as populações tradicionais e povos indígenas.
Some medical aid is trickling in, and as access to clinics is limited, some doctors have been evacuating critical patients by plane.
As well as a health crisis, Brazil's government's also grappling with political turbulence, with key figures being fired or walking out. Bolsonaro recently dismissed the Culture Secretary, Regina Duarte, after downgrading that role in a move that some say shows disdain for the arts. Well, to tell us more about the situation in that sector, I'm joined by Sabrina Fidalgo, who's a filmmaker, writer and actress in lockdown in Rio right now. Sabrina, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about what life is like professionally at the moment as an artist and how you've been working through this?
Yes, I'm a filmmaker, and since 2 months I'm stuck at home because of the pandemic, and the situation right now professionally, it's like I'm working only on pre-production projects where I can only work like in computer, the development phases of projects like writing scripts and things like that. Otherwise, it's impossible to do other stuff like shooting films or this kind of things because it's impossible to go out. And everybody is quarantining still since 2 months, and we have no idea when it will end.
And I believe you're working on a series that it's a bit more web-based.
Yes, I'm right now working in this web series about the quarantine life of women in Brazil. And we are going to shoot it. Actors will shoot themselves with their mobiles, and I will directly it remotely.
Veteran filmmaker Carlos Diegues spoke out recently, saying the government's not interested in Brazilian cinema and there's nowhere to go for help. Is that something you agree with? And how would you describe the current administration's policy on arts and culture?
I mean, there is no policy administrations for arts right now in Brazil because our president, he doesn't care for arts and culture here. He hates culture, he hates arts, he doesn't understand anything. He's ignorant regarding this topic, and he's destroying all our arts and culture institutions. This is the situation.
And beyond arts and culture, beyond that sector, what do you make of the government's handling of the crisis from a social perspective?
Terrible, because our president, he's going out every day to the streets in a daily basis without masks, without using masks, touching the people and giving bad examples. And he's saying in television every day that COVID-19 is not important, that people should come back to work, even though we are having over 1,000 deaths because of COVID-19 every day. So what will happen is a tragedy.
Sabrina Fidalgo, thank you very much for your perspective on the current circumstances there in Brazil. Well, that's all for this show. Remember to join us here next time on Inside the Americas for a panoramic view on news from north to south. Till then, do stay with us here on France 24.